Good evening. Hello, everyone. You're listening to Truth Cat Radio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is 8:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. Although I myself am broadcasting from Chicago, Illinois, in the U.S. And my name is Richard Kary. This is Beyond the Matrix. I'd also like to say hello to all our listeners over at Wolf Spirit Radio. And hello to JP. Thank you for the simulcast. You know, we do always appreciate the extra listenership. And anyone out there who does like what you hear, just to make clear, we are completely listener supported. You know, we don't do any sort of corporate advertising. We're not monetizing in any way. All our archives are free on our YouTube, Truth Cat Radio YouTube channel for you to check out. So that being said, please do what you can to help out and support the station. We are very appreciative of all of our donators. I know some regularly contribute, and that's really fantastic. You know, without you guys, we wouldn't be able to keep this going on at all. And then there's also people, who just on a whim, maybe have a little extra money at the end of the month. Sometimes those little oddball amounts, are completely welcome as well, So if you're like, I'd love to give something, I could give this little bit, but it seems like not what I'd want to give ideally. Well, hey, you can help us out again in a couple months, a few months down the road or something. But if you want to send that now, whatever. Sometimes those little extra last-minute decisions help make sure everything's taken care of here, keep us running with all the bills paid. We always try to do some upgrades with equipment to just make sure we can stay competitive, with the technology requirements these days. So please, everything you could do to help out and support the station is appreciated. And please like and share our posts on Facebook. Check out our Truth Cat Radio page. There's also one for Beyond the Matrix and Truth Cat's news group. We do a lot of promotion for the station through Facebook, so we appreciate all those shares and likes. Today we do have a returning guest, and we also have a co-host of the station here. We have Steven Douglas Whitener joining us. Steven was on a couple months ago. Hello, can you hear us still fine, Steven?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay.
Am I coming in okay?
Yeah, pretty loud. You could even probably be slightly quieter or softer or further away from the mic. It'll still sound pretty. Yeah, it's pretty clear, pretty good. And then we also have Graeme Sutherland with us today, host of Delete the Beast, of course. The show right before me. Hello, Graeme. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, no problem, Richard. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, Graeme, let me describe this gentleman to you, as well as once again to the listeners. Oh, wait, did we lose him? Steven, are you still there? I believe we just lost him.
Well, you must have hit the red button.
Not sure. Yeah. Steven, can you hear us? We'll have to get him reconnected there, I guess. See. I don't know if maybe I can bring him back into the call. Does that work without me losing everyone else? I think I have before. Add to group. Yeah, add to group call. We'll see if we get him back in like this. Ooh, he is down for the count. That's odd. Does it mean it still shows him as available? I apologize to the listeners out there. So, Graeme, how have things been? I'm sorry I missed your show. I was kind of busy with some last-minute things with this gentleman, trying to communicate with him, and I was just kind of Yeah, kind of behind a bit in my weekly schedule. But how did your show go? Sounds like Steven.
Yeah, it was not bad. Steve jumped in after about 45 minutes or so, and he just what a break halfway through, and then we just continued it after the break. We're talking about all sorts of things, but in particular current affairs.
This is John. Do I need to go in and get Steve real quick? And
I can hear you, John.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we hear you again now. Yeah, if you could get him.
You're loud and proud.
I don't know. I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I heard him there. Okay, no problem. He said he was John. You said it was Steve. That confused me a bit.
So, Graeme, though, you were saying about about your show.
What a noise! Sorry, it was a funny noise. Come in there. I don't know what it was. Yeah, we were just speaking about current affairs, basically the situation in North Korea, the situation in, Syria and Iraq, and just everything. Really, it was just talking about all of that. Yeah, it's quite cool. It was quite cool. Yeah, I was basically saying that the U.S. sanctions on North Korea, have been crippling, brutal and really crippling, causing deaths and infant mortality and everything. Steve maintained that's not the case. He said that was just, scaremongering or whatever, and that they had good trade with China and Russia. But it's not just trade. There's a lot of stuff. I was trying to make the point that the sanctions were affecting them at a banking level. They couldn't trade internationally. Basically, that was the thing, and they couldn't get. They struggled. They struggled to get medicines. Excuse me, and also. Just basic foodstuffs, they just struggled. Getting a lot of funny noises.
Am I back up, fellas? Can you hear me? We've got gremlins here in South Carolina.
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Go right ahead.
You hear him okay, Richard?
Yeah, I can hear him fine as well. All right, well, getting right back then. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but Graeme, for you and the listeners, was going to describe Steven here again. I had him on a couple months ago, and Steven has previously worked for, and later he tried to expose a company called AquaTech.
Right.
AquaTech, they were initially involved with illegal dumping in South Carolina. That's where he resides. And that was around 1989, 1990. And ultimately, that company ultimately turned into a Superfund Site, is what Steven tells us. But Steven had since become a rather acute analyst. Like many of us, of the control and perceptions in our society and the corporate infrastructure in general. Just all the propaganda and the corporate media out there. I really like his story. I noticed online a lot of times. I'm sure you have this happen a lot. You and certain people on social media will like a lot of the same posts, share a lot of the same posts in groups or just be friends and all that. And I got to know him gradually that way. And then I looked into, what's this guy about? He seems like a pretty good guy. And then, I just had a hunch, that he'd be he'd be a good person to chat with. And then when I found out more about this past he had there, I was like, wow, this is the perfect kind of thing that we like to expose more, and talk about in this show. So, I wanted to get him on here, and it was a pretty good show. I don't know, Steven, I don't know how well I described. It was just the most basic description, but if you want to maybe tell Graeme, and the listeners in a little more detail again, about the situation with AquaTech.
Okay, can you hear me, Graeme? I've got some kind of delay going here that's just repeating on top of everybody.
All right. It's probably because you're listening to the radio. You'll need to mute your radio.
Or at least make it quieter in the background. Yeah.
Okay, this is not my... let me get back.
That's all you've got to do. That's what the delay is all about.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fine on our end here. So.
Yeah, it's working here.
It's good enough, Steven. You can here. Go ahead with what you were.
Hey, this is John. I'm setting it up for Steve. Steve's going to come back in the office if you don't mind.
Yeah, you're quite loud, John.
Okay, I apologize. Let me go get Steve. He's in the other office.
Yeah, you probably just need to back away from the mic a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's okay. It's just every computer's different. Sometimes it's real quiet, and next time you come booming in,
Yeah.
You've gone now. John, we've lost you. You went really fadey.
I do apologize. Here's Steve. Hello? Betcha on this one.
Oh, okay.
Here, which is a guaranteed internet.
All right, great. So I can get back up here where I can hear him. Hello?
Yeah.
There you go, right there.
Okay.
Okay. Are we back on? I apologize, fellas. We've had gremlins here. I've been from between one room and the other, but I think maybe this will do it. I apologize. My friend had the radio show playing through his laptop and was trying to do the Skype at the same time, so I got a little confused. So sorry to have missed out on all that. Where are we?
Oh, well, no, yeah, just for you to talk a little more about AquaTech for the listeners and also for Graeme here, who didn't really hear about
Oh, okay, yes. Well, AquaTech, I had a terrible reminder of AquaTech a week ago when I had intended to do this show, and I just recently learned I've had 4 strokes and had a headache for several days. I was really in a lot of pain, and my fiance convinced me to go get checked, and I was at least I found out I didn't have any more gray matter or stroke problems, but there was bad inflammation in my sinuses and an infection, and I've had those problems ever since AquaTech. I was burned with some hydrogen chloride gas there, had pneumonia for weeks, and I just haven't been the same since, and it brought it all back home. But yes, when I worked at AquaTech, I found that they were doing illegal things that they weren't licensed to do. They were handling radioactive waste and biomedical waste that they weren't licensed to handle. They were really just running a scam with their customers. If someone had hazardous waste they wanted treated, they would take it in and they would accept payment for the treatment. But if the waste wasn't going to catch fire or explode, they would just let it sit there. They knew that they would be made into a Superfund site eventually. And after several accidents and, all the drama while I worked there, they sent a letter out to all the customers who had already paid them, for instance, they paid them $1,000 to treat the drum of waste. Then they offered to sell them back their waste for $20,000, while pointing out that if the EPA comes in here and finds your waste, then, you could be fined millions of dollars to help clean up this Superfund site. And it became obvious that was what the whole scam was about. It was just a money-making scheme. And when I didn't want to go along with it, that's when I was out inventorying cylinders, and the hydrogen chloride gas just happened to be leaking out of one of the cylinders. And when I came back from having pneumonia, they told me to leave what I found there, or I end up back there in one of their drums. And of course, I immediately called the EPA and the DHEC, who didn't seem to care, and then the media. And the media wasn't interested at first, but about a week later, they had the first accident, and then they were interested. And then I called them out on the TV, but it took another almost 18 months, 16 to 18 months for them to be shut down. And it just, it really spoiled my faith in the system, I guess you would say.
Yeah. That's horrible.
No, it was rough. I mean, I thought that they would come after me, but they never, they just acted with impunity. What I had to say, it didn't matter. That they just got away with everything they did, and they're a Superfund Site now. Supposedly it's cleaned up. It's not very far from where I live. I go by there pretty often, and it's just a big field now. It was a landfill years ago. So, really made me angry, and it showed me that these people who I had been learning about since I was younger, just the real history of our planet and Western civilization, I'd read about them, but that brought it home to just how evil and powerful that they were.
Yeah, well, that's how they operate, isn't it? It's just,
yes.
Yeah, it's quite shocking. They just run roughshod over everybody.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the beast.
Yes. Well, they've been in power for so long, and they just, I don't believe that they think they can lose, but everything seems to be coming to a head lately. I didn't catch all that you were saying about the sanctions earlier, Graeme. I just caught a few words when I had the interference going, but I've noticed a lot of things are really coming to a head lately, especially the North Korea thing. I think Kim has noticed what happens to people who give up their weapons to Saddam and Gaddafi. I understand why he would want to have those weapons, but I don't understand the suicidal actions he's taking, firing missiles across the island of Japan and blowing up hydrogen bombs and saying, "This is for you, a gift for you, America." I mean, why? Why would he invite destruction on himself that way? It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand perfectly why he would want the weapons to defend himself after what the West has done to other countries, but that just seems bizarre.
I think he's as mad as hell because he's watched what the sanctions are actually doing. What the cause and effect is of the sanctions, and it's not good. His people are starving.
Mm-hmm.
And he blames everything on America.
Yes.
That's basically what's going on.
Yes, perhaps you're right. He does seem to be unhinged. When he first came to power, it didn't appear that he was in charge, but then he went and killed a bunch of people, his own family members, poisoned his brother. He seems to be more ruthless than his father and grandfather. I don't know. But it also seems that he's setting himself up to be attacked, and having exploded this bomb and made it clear that he has weapons and has threatened us with them. He has made himself a perfect patsy for a false flag attack. If the cabal chose, they could explode a nuclear weapon now and say, "Look, he did it. It's Kim that did it." Just like that TV show Jericho. It doesn't smell right to me that he could stay in power and consolidate power in that country and be completely wacky. It's like, I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I know it does. It just smacks of theater to me.
Yes. Almost like he's playing a part. I agree.
Yeah.
And I read some analysis of his time in Switzerland, and someone was making the conjecture that maybe he had been gotten to by intelligence agencies there. I don't know if that is I guess it's certainly possible. But when he makes these outlandish threats and explodes weapons to prove that, yes, I have a hydrogen bomb now. I mean, the design that he displayed, that's far in advance of what he had. That shows the hollow pit technology and the tritium injection, and that's many levels ahead of what they had previously. And how did he advance that fast? That doesn't seem like it could have all come just from North Korea.
No, I know that's right.
So, you know, that's had me concerned a lot lately, too. I got smacked in the head by the AquaTech thing last Thursday, and thankfully I haven't had a headache for a few days, so I'm feeling better. But I'm a lot more antsy about the situation in the world than I was when I was on here previously. It seems that time is accelerating and things are fast moving to a head. And things have been happening unexpectedly as well. There was the big Charlottesville thing. I heard you speak about that, Richard, on one of your shows, how it was just such a ludicrous event. It smelled of another total false flag with that woman that said she was her mother. She looked just like a mother from Sandy Hook, and then there are no airbags, and maybe there's a lot of things that were very iffy about that, and it seemed like they were really pushing to start a conflict internally between races or Antifa or whatever. And then here comes Harvey and just blasts Houston, and you see black folks, white folks, Mexican folks, all trying to save each other's lives. And the whole thing that they seem to be building up, it looked like it just fell apart on them. I hope that's the case. They even had to come out and disavow Antifa, the media who had been saying, oh, they're just there protesting Nazis. And they had to come out and admit that they were a very violent, vile group that wished us no good at all. Yeah, and most of them are paid for. So that had me concerned at the time, but it seemed to fall apart after the hurricane and the rescues, and we saw people working together like Americans often do. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm very nervous about the one headed for us right now, this Irma. It looks
that's
like
one of the biggest storms ever recorded, man. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of Hugo, who came through in '89 here where I live in South Carolina. And Hugo was a real punch, but this one is supposedly even much worse.
Much worse,
yeah, things just all are hitting at once. That and the whole North Korea thing all happening at once. And if he was going to attack us, or if they were going to pull the false flag, what better timing than when we were just, had a 1-2 punch from the weather. So, yeah, I'm very apprehensive about the next month or so. I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, I heard now I have the echo. Sorry.
Sorry. It's okay. Gremlins. Hey, everybody send your shekel to Truth Cat Radio so we can hunt down these gremlins and discard them.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it looks like in Syria now a lot of the I heard one of the al-Nusra factions are starting to have a lot of infighting, killing of each other's leaders and such. So, I mean, it's really fizzling out as far as the U.S.'s plans to stay in there occupying it. Syria, with Russia's help, seems to have all but eradicated, all of the ISIS and related groups. But, now we hear 3,000 more troops, American troops, are being sent into Afghanistan, the country that America never wants to leave, right, Graeme?
Exactly.
16 years they've been there. 16 years.
I know. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I'm sure you've been following this. Well, both of you, been aware of it the whole time. But yeah, it's just ridiculous how you could be in a country that many years, not really accomplish anything. And then we always hear that, that it's mostly about guarding these poppy fields. I mean, the CIA are the biggest drug dealers. And the war on terror is really the war on the competition, right?
The CIA are the gardeners. The gardeners. No, the farmers, sorry. The farmers. And the crop is poppies.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear that poppies grow rather well in North Korea, too.
Yes, I heard that one, yep.
You mentioned Syria. Richard, I read a story about a convoy of fighters that were on a bus and they were trying to escape. And what our military had been, there were no bathrooms on the bus, and they had said that they wouldn't attack the bus because their families and people were on there. So they waited for the ISIS fighters to get off to take a leak and then blew them away. I read that just the other day, and I was like, okay.
That's really not the most noble.
No, but they are on the run, I guess. The point, as you said, the point is that the factions, and we've stopped supplying them. If we cut off their funds and their arms, then I can see how they would fight over what was left, the scraps that were left. I saw that a journalist was arrested in Bulgaria for pointing out that we used an Azerbaijani airline to smuggle arms into Syria last year, and then the government in Bulgaria had arrested her and tried to root out her sources. But it seems that maybe Syria is coming to an end, and there's going to be a partition, and people are racing to occupy the land that they want. I think they probably will split it up into a Kurdish area and a Sunni and an Alawite area eventually, but I don't know if that will happen or not. Israel's very mad that the border areas that have been deconflicted, as they say, still contain some Hezbollah. Not at least two of them don't, but there was another one that didn't. And I saw Israel hit what they claimed was a chemical weapons factory in Syria today, a military target, which doesn't make any sense to me. Why would Assad be using chemical weapons when he basically has won the fight?
They've been accusing him of chemical weapons too many times and have been proven false in the last few years.
They've made themselves look stupid with the amount of times they've accused him of using chemical weapons, and then it's been proven that it was either the ISIS that the US was supporting, or it was a failed setup.
Yeah, I can't believe that he sent those missiles back in, I think it was April, claiming that Assad had gassed his people. It was such an obvious setup. That was the first time I really broke with Trump. I couldn't believe he did that. And since then, he's gone back and plans to send more to Afghanistan. I don't know. I don't know if he's compromised, if he's threatened, or if he was just a plant from the beginning. But I'm certainly glad it's not Hillary in there, but it's definitely not what I had hoped for with the Trump presidency. Do you guys think that he's deep state operative, or he's compromised, or just surrounded?
Well, I think he's compromised with regard to Israel's geopolitical goals. I think it's kind of hard, for anyone to get in the White House and not be, unless they were, very aware of the need to, completely go the other direction with everyone they appoint. And he also had, there were a lot of so-called Obama holdovers, people who were appointed by Obama, but that Trump gave the benefit of the doubt that if he leaves them in those positions, that they'll start being, in his corner, basically, since he's the new president. And that was a big mistake. I think he waited too long and even now, not changing quite enough of the positions to quite enough of the right people. I think he's also very naive, really, of just a lot of the, internationally speaking, just, a lot of what really goes on and what sort of land agendas and well, of course, oil agendas. But he, he's from the world of business, and I think that has a lot to do with it. He's used to people who can be taken at their word, or else you don't do business with them anymore, and they suffer greatly. But in the world of politics, no one keeps their word. It's not quite like the world of business. I think maybe he wasn't also, quite prepared for how much everyone around him would, be shielding him from a lot of the truth. Make sure he does what they want. And who knows? I mean, that's what everyone still speculates that he could be constantly really kept from a lot of the sources of information that could really make the difference. Even just him meeting face to face with Putin is at least some good, that could come from. I don't know what he said in his administration so far, but I don't know. I think he's definitely manipulated by Israel, and Graeme, I know you're more wary of the Muslim factor because over in Europe there's so much immigration there from the Muslim people, but I mean, as far as the Middle East situation, I mean, I don't know. I've always found Israel, to be far more a threat to peace than a lot of the Muslim neighbors they have. Certainly Iran is extremely peaceful, and yet Israel always claims that they're 5 minutes away from, building something that'll wipe out Israel.
Yeah, a lot of that was just nonsense, though, Richard. There was a famous speech by ex-president. I can't remember his name now. Ajinabadad or something. Anyway, he was totally misquoted. They said that he said he wanted to wipe Israel off the map, and that was not at all. He said it didn't be sensible and redraw the map. Another suggesting a two-state solution. So it was a threat at all, but the media got a hold of it, and totally twisted his words, and tried to make out he was a bad man and needed to go on and take control of his resources.
Right.
That's what happened there.
I hear that Netanyahu is being less and less liked by his fellow staff, really, even, and of course the population isn't really that, at least a good faction is percentage is not as comfortable, with his his leadership, just how he reflects upon the rest of the country. He's becoming far more radical. The more there are some charges he's being brought up on right now. He's trying to distract from that, and I don't know. Perhaps he thinks that being more of a warlike leader will distract from these allegations and sweep it all aside. You can't arrest your leader if you're in the middle of a war. So that sort of thinking.
Yeah.
Netanyahu has quite the past. I remember there was a big. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I coming through? Okay, I got it.
Oh, there may be some Mossad gremlins
cut out there.
Just keep trying to talk. That's fine.
It could be, yes. I remember Netanyahu was in trouble back in the 80s that it had something to do with nuclear weapon triggers, Krytons, I believe they're called, and smuggling them out of a port in Texas, and a company that he was involved with before he was prime minister. So, yeah, he's got a very checkered past. I had once heard that his name, Netanyahu, in some language means nasty smell, so I always just called him Stinky. I don't know how he stayed in power as long as he has. I guess that that it's the periodic conflicts they have with Gaza. Maybe, like you said, you can't discard somebody with the war, and the whole, I am not completely think that Israel is the head of the snake, but I'm not pro-Israel and I'm not pro-Palestinian. It's like a pox on both their houses. They seem to be just fighting each other.
Well, wait. Now you might not have a reason to be in Palestine's corner, but I really don't think you could say that everything you hear about them being aggressive comes from Israel. There is a large influence over the world press from the forces that come out of Israel, and of course, the Rothschilds banks, even come from.
The point I make is that with Gaza, the money that has come into Gaza repeatedly has gone to build fortifications and arms, and Israel itself set up Hamas. I mean, they created it as almost an enemy to have. And then they have these periodic campaigns against Gaza. They even call it mowing the lawn, cutting the grass. It's like they build it up just to knock it down. Just the whole thing just seems like a.
And then there's so much international pressure. I remember it was a big thing, and I think 2014 was it? When everyone in Hollywood was being warned not to stick up for Gaza, not to talk about Gaza.
Yes.
And it was like you'll lose your job in Hollywood, like for your whole career, basically.
I have a lot of sympathy for the civilians and the people that live there, but their leaders have failed them as well, just as much as Arafat did.
Of course.
Now the leadership has taken the money and just. And let the people be massacred. It just all seems like a con game between the militaries of one side and the other. They just are making a high living off the war, and that's the way it's been. That's the history of the world, basically, I suppose you could say. But in a microcosm, it looks to be the same thing with Gaza and Israel. Just from my point of view, that there are victims there in Gaza, definitely the people are, but their leadership and the Hamas, they seem to be, they love death as much as we love life, is what they say. I have heard the leaders of Hamas say that. Yeah. So I can't give my full support to either one. I think that's a situation that's going to continue to get worse. I don't see an answer to it.
And as far as this, the culture clash, well, like I was mentioning, in Europe, Graeme, like the large influx of Muslims, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there still are different, cultures. Different variations, in the Muslim culture, depending on the country. Like Iran is very advanced, whereas Saudi Arabia, who were always backing up so much, seemed like the most backward version of it you could imagine.
Yeah, that's right. That's just the way it's going. The media is failing to report a lot of the incidents that's happening. There's rape epidemics, there's sexual assault epidemics, there are failed suicide bombing attempts and everything that are being stifled. They're being choked at the media. They're not broadcasting it, but they're already causing major troubles, much worse than people know.
It almost looks like a suicide of Europe. I saw that Sweden not only is going to welcome back ISIS fighters, but they're going to provide them with a new identity, put them at the front of the line for welfare and jobs. It's like, why?
I know, it's just totally nuts.
And as you said, they are clamping down on anyone reporting about the rape epidemic or the violence that's happening. In England, they go and arrest people for condemning Muslim violence. But when the Muslim violence happens, it seems like the police are nowhere to be found.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That must just be infuriating. I can't imagine what to do. When your own government has sold you out, I don't understand what do they just want more people to come in thinking that they're going to create a tax base? It reeks of, I don't know about there must be some reason they're doing this, letting all these people in that are incompatible. It just seems suicidal to me for Europe to do that.
Yeah, no, we know what they're up to. It's the New World Order freaks. It's a Masonic elite. Call them what you like.
Uh-huh.
They are. Yeah, they're all about causing a breakdown of society and basically a war on the street as a precursor to martial law. That's what they're all about.
Yeah. The more chaos they can cause, the more control they can exert to correct it, I suppose.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Problem. Reaction. Solution.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, Steven, you're familiar then a bit with Graeme's show. You were mentioning listening to it earlier. Yeah, he's
yes.
in Inverness, Scotland.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it's very close to Loch Ness.
Okay. Have you seen Nessie, Graeme?
Do you know this? I was down at the south side. I'd only been here for about 9 months. And I kept looking at the loch because I find it fascinating. The weather changes, the water changes from minute to minute. Anyway, I was down at the south side of the loch at a place called Port Augustus. And I was driving round the very end of the very south side of the loch. And there's a bit where the road goes right down, kind of almost level with the loch. And that's quite unusual because some of the road is a bit close, but most of it's quite high above the loch. But anyway, so I was going past this spot, and there's a small field, that sometimes got sheep in it between the road and the loch at this point. And I was looking at the loch, and there was a whole load of birds I think they were like lapwings or something, black and white bulbs, and they were kind of like, they were agitated. They were going a bit crazy. They were sort of diving into the water and everything. So I slowed right down. I slowed right down to like 10 miles an hour, and I looked and I seen there was a huge black thing in the water. And I actually thought it was either just a floating log or a seal. And it came up to the surface and it went back down, and the bulbs continued to go crazy. But that was it. You know, I stopped. I stopped to get out of the car. I took my camera. I was watching the water. The bulbs could obviously sense there was something there. Or maybe whatever it was, maybe it was a seal, I don't know, because it's a freshwater loch, that's a thing. But you will occasionally get a seal in there chasing salmon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's fascinating, man. That is really awesome.
Yeah, it's quite a strange one. But I've never seen anything since, and I'll look at it pretty much every day.
Okay.
Well, you gentlemen both live near some, beautiful land, in country. Both in Scotland there as well as South Carolina. So, I mean, I'm sure you can both share that at least in common. You both live near a lot of the beautiful land, as opposed to people like myself who are stuck in the gloomy city.
Yeah, I couldn't stand to be in the middle of a big city, and where I live has been growing to the point that it's almost like a city to me, although it wouldn't seem so to someone from Chicago. But the amount of growth in the last 20 years, it's probably doubled since we got a BMW plant in our town, and the traffic has doubled. I hope that the hurricane doesn't really devastate us, but it looks like it's really going to come right over the top of us.
Is it supposed to hit South Carolina a bit?
Well,
there?
yes. The latest track showed it going up the east coast of Florida and then making landfall at Savannah and coming right up over us. It perhaps would still be a hurricane when it got to us in the upstate of South Carolina. Not a real strong hurricane, but strong enough to blow trees over and cause power outages and disrupt everything. And all the people that will be flying out of Florida, if they can get away, we're going to have an influx of refugees here very soon. I heard they're going to start Saturday morning, that they're going to start evacuating the coast of South Carolina and make the interstates all the lanes, however many, both headed away from the coast with the evacuation plan.
All right, so at least some areas are definitely getting affected quite a bit. I forget exactly. You gentlemen are kind of close in age, right? Steven, what year were you born?
I'll be 57 on the 18th of this month. I was born in 1960.
Okay, 60. And then Graeme, I forget your age as well.
I was born in February, so I'm just a few months older.
Oh, really?
Well, we're contemporaries. Then you've seen the same changes as me. It's been quite a ride.
Well, no, Steven,
especially here in the South of the United States. When I was born, things were totally different.
Well, Steven, Can we mention No, Steven, I was just going to say, can we mention your plans to the audience yet?
Yeah, okay, sure. It's going to be a while, but probably the next month. But yes, you can.
Okay. Well, no, I'm Steven here is planning on contributing to the station. He's going to plan his own show to contribute for Truth Cat Radio here. And yeah, no, Graeme. Yeah, I thought Steven could benefit a lot. Actually, I'm glad you stuck around. For us all to chat like this. But wow, I didn't realize you guys were born the same year, only a couple months apart. Steven, you were mentioning about some of the changes or something. I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh yeah, well, just when I was a child in my first 10 years of my life, the South was still pretty much a segregated society. And then a lot of violence took place at other places, not so much right around here, but some in the lower part of the state and a lot more in Mississippi. And I saw all that change the first 20 years of my life. Even the first 15, it had pretty much come to pass. But it was a completely different world. And it is good that black people are not second-class citizens and not treated legally the same way that they were then. But what has over time is that the powers that be have destroyed the black family and the black community along the way. They just, when I was born, it was more likely that a white woman would be a single mother than a black woman, and now it just completely reversed, and they ran the fathers away from black families, and it's just and that's not across the board in communities, but black community existed and families existed a lot more to a much greater extent than they do now. And it seems I've heard that that's the test case that those powers that be, those new world orders that Graeme was talking about, want to do to the rest of the world. That was just like a beta test on everybody.
Well, but what we find interesting now is, I mean, we've had a lot of compensation, with affirmative action in countries like America, but at this point now in the culture, we have the double standard where it's okay for people to talk about killing white people and all this stuff.
Oh, well, no, it's completely flipped.
Yeah, and then the amounts of immigration really in Europe and America. I mean, if you were doing that in any other country of another ethnicity, I mean, it would be called population replacement, and it's therefore a form of genocide. Soft genocide. Over a bit of time, but they call that a soft genocide. But so I mean, no, there is. So yeah, I mean, no, you see that is still a problem in the areas where you are, and no, I mean that is a concern if that is the case. But it is interesting how especially in the larger cities, there's this trend to go, to overcompensate. I mean, to the point of definitely attacking the white race as an attempt to compensate from any times of the past.
There's definitely an attack on white people. And for crimes that are 150 years old, that are obscured by history, while they don't care about what's happening today. It's just a mindset of people who have been taught what to think and not how to think. They just don't think critically and logically. It's okay. White people own slaves. Never mind that there was less than 2% of the population who actually did own slaves. But
actually, there were black people
that happened,
and there were black people who owned slaves in America back then as well. A lot of people, I think, don't know that. I'm sorry, there's actually a 5-minute break coming right now, gentlemen. If you guys could just mute, do whatever you need to do for a break, we'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm just eating a coriander flavored naan bread.
Oh, all right.
That's what I'm doing. That's my snack. A hot naan bread with coriander in it. Beautiful.
Well, stick around, everyone. We'll be right back for the second half of Beyond the Matrix. And then after that, right after my show, of course, will be the Stephen D. Kelley show. So be sure to stay tuned in. He has a pretty good topic.
A pretty good topic.
Yeah, it's an excellent topic.
Excellent topic. Go on. All right. Yeah. Well, hey, you're actually it's about that time. Are you ready?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm ready. All right. Stick around, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Let me turn down my volume here a little bit. It looks like we're going over the limit. All right, everybody, welcome to Truth Cat Radio. Let me just look and see who's all listening. I know we had quite a few listeners earlier, but yes, this, of course, is www.truthcatradio, and we are certainly happy to have you here. It is Thursday, as he mentioned, big Thursday for us. You know, we have a listener from the Russian Federation listening, so shout out to the listener from the Russian Federation. We're pretty interested in what's all that about. Has actually been listening for about an hour now.
Oh, Steven, that might be the guest I have lined up. I was telling you about for a future week. It's just
check out your show, huh?
Well, yeah, he's helping to improve Russia-U.S. relations. He's a professor who's now retired. He originally defected rather from the Soviet Union, but
he's at this point there right now.
But yeah, at this point he does spend time there, and yeah, he said when he gets back he was in the deep woods up in Russia there, and he said when he gets back in a few weeks he'll do a show. So yeah, I bet that's him.
So how about that? He's standing out like a sore thumb. That Russian flag is anyway, yeah, very nice. Okay, all right, well, back to the show. As I was saying, it is Thursday, and in about an hour, my show is going to be coming up, Stephen D. Kelley Show, and the title of the thing tonight is going to be talking about the Rothschild family, the history of the Rothschild family, and their interaction with all the historical events that have taken place since they've become the influence that they are. So hopefully that's going to be very information intensive, and I'm doing my best to gather up as much as I can right now in the hour I have roughly before we get started. That is going to be it for the live broadcasting until we come back on Monday. And we're going to start out at 8 p.m. Eastern with Shima Moore and her show Metaphysics and More, and that is our Metaphysical Monday. And, of course, we're looking to fill that up with a few more shows. Tuesdays, we've got Daryl Nichols in the Daryl Show starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. And right after Daryl at 10 is Dave Robbins with Mystic Freedom. And we had an interesting show last week. If you missed that, you might want to check it out. On Wednesday, we start at 10 p.m. Eastern with Freedom of Joyce, hosted by Terry Joyce, which brings us back to Thursday. So if you want to be involved in our schedule, we need you to contact me directly at LAW17GUN, that's Law17Gun at AOL.com. And also, please don't confuse that with a PayPal, because of course I got to mention the PayPal. Yes, we need donations to keep doing what we do. We're not selling any product. We're just providing this product for you, and hopefully we can continue doing that, providing that you guys will kick us down a ruble every once in a while into our PayPal, which is, of course, Stephen Kelley 714 at gmail.com. And please don't send any email to that. If you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and a nice comment and share it with your friends on Facebook. And when you are on Facebook, please join our Truth Cat Radio Facebook page. Okay, very important that you do that. That way that you will get all the information about the various shows that we put out, and you can help us by sharing those memes that we create and help us to get more listeners. If you have not discovered our chat room, it's easy enough to find. There's a button on our main page called Truth Cat Chat, which is funny if you're in France. But right next to that button, of course, well, you got to register a screen name and say hello. And if you want to call in, of course, the phone number is 714-598-3125. And I assume Richard will take calls right now, assuming I answer the phone. So if you want to call in right now, 714-598-3125. I hope you wrote that down. And, of course, don't forget, send us money, okay? Help us out. Remember, we are completely dependent on your generosity. So, and if you forgot the PayPal address, StephenKelley714@gmail.com, you can find it on our main page right next to that Truth Cat Chat button. There'll be a button that says Support Us, okay? That's where you want to go. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Richard. And until I come back in an hour, I will have to see you all. But again, this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com, and it is September 7th, 2017, and you're listening to Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary.
Stephen, and another thing I was just going to add is, we do have a couple other guests already booked for the listeners to look forward to. Not sure when the Russian gentleman will be coming on yet, which week, but you remember Swami, who was on the show?
Yeah, Swami with the tattooed bindi. I always think about him.
He's coming back. He's going to be back in 2 weeks, actually. So
He's got tattooed what?
He tattooed the you know what a bindi is? It's the little red thing they wear on their forehead. You know, a little red.
Oh yeah, the little spot.
Yeah, it's called a bindi. Anyway, he had his tattooed on that way they can't wash it off when he's in a FEMA. He said that he would have it tattooed that way it's there permanent, so if they throw him in a FEMA camp, he'll still have it.
So that's like a handy bendy gandhi.
I guess so.
What's a handy bendy gandhi?
yeah, so Swami Shivananda Giri, he'll be back then. That's the 21st of September, and then on the 5th of October, we're going to have Michael Rivero coming on. I remember that's a gentleman. He's worked for NASA. You and he were talking, Stephen.
Again, that's like his third time on the show.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. He was. Yeah. He's very generous. You know, to shows quite a few networks other than his own, and yeah. He does a lot of different good topics. You know, he covers a lot of good news. So, I'm glad he's going to contribute and come back on as well. All right. Well, thank you, Stephen. And and I don't know how we're going to do this because we have Stephen and Stephen now on this station. So, how are we going to figure out?
You could just call me. Yeah, you could call me Handsome Stephen.
You like that?
You want me to unmute and respond here? I was you just call me. You could call me boss or something. I don't know, whatever. You know, I mean, that shouldn't be too hard, right? Anyway, all right.
There you go.
Boss man, Stephen. Okay, that's funny. So no, yeah, but I didn't want to go off too much on a new conversation at the end of the last hour. But speaking of how you gentlemen are, you know, about the same age, well, just about exactly, you know, right about 1960, born, a little older than me. I was born in the bicentennial in '76. But you gentlemen, as you were mentioning in the last hour, have seen a lot of changes. You know, you've seen a lot of changes in Europe and America in that time that you've been around. You know, more than our parents or our grandparents' generation. Well, I don't know, maybe not our grandparents' generation. You know, but I mean, you know, more than I think a lot of people would have expected at the very least. Yeah, well, no, I was just also gonna. Oh, go ahead, Graeme.
What I was going to say is, I think both of you guys will probably find this interesting. But growing up in Scotland, from kind of early teenage years, we were subject to a lot of American cartoons like Scooby-Doo and Boss Cat and Wacky Races and the Flintstones, and it was all American cartoons we got. And like, as we got a bit older, it was really cool to be into American cars, you know, big muscle cars and everything. That was like really cool. And then it was also cool to own them. So, you know, if it was American, even motorbikes, Harley Davidsons, you know, everybody wanted one of them. But back in the day, and anything American was cool. And the CB radio thing, that was major over here. It used to be illegal, so everybody was buying AM CB radios, American CB radios, and they were getting smuggled over in their tens of thousands. Everybody was buying them. And then the British government turned around and said, right, okay, there was campaigns to legalize it. So eventually they said, right, okay, we'll legalize it, but we're legalizing the FM frequency, not the AM frequency. But anyway, it was just like, you know, and all the loads of Hollywood movies and everything. Everything was sort of cool if it was American. But you know this, things have changed. American stuff it's not so cool anymore. It's seen as a bit cliched and tiresome. And I'm even talking about the music and everything. It's seen as a bit cliched and tiresome now. It's not cool anymore. And even the big cars, the big muscle cars and everything, they're not cool anymore. people are just into different, different stuff like Japanese and German in particular, and Italian motorbikes and cars. So yeah, it's kind of funny, there's been a big cultural change. It's not so cool to like or buy or use American stuff anymore. I just thought that might interest you.
Yeah. Europe is not really seeing it as being the the ultimate. Well, I don't know. Some parts of Europe always thought themselves better in some ways, but yeah, the American culture was sought after for a while there, especially. I was also just thinking about what Steven was saying at the start of the show. I think I don't know, you were mentioning just how much things seem to even be speeding up and just getting more and more, I don't know, it's like chaotic or something to that effect that you were saying. But I actually had a theme in mind, to discuss that was touching on that. I didn't really get a chance to post for it. I don't know, I'm having trouble with Facebook, either just by rare chance or something more particular. But I was thinking about the like the whole zodiac shift of ages thing. Like they had the song in the 60s. The Age of Aquarius.
I remember it well. I always used to play out in jukeboxes.
And the Age of Aquarius, I was looking up some of it, Graeme, again. And Age of Aquarius is one of 12 successive 12,150 year periods, each corresponding to one of the 12 signs of the zodiac. In this view, Earth has been in the sign of Pisces, and so we're moving now into Aquarius. But the interesting thing here is that there's a lot of debate over when the exact, shift would take place, because, well, a popular date for the beginning of the Age of Aquarius is the year 2000. However, if the Age of Pisces, they argue, had begun in the ministry of Jesus, with the ministry of Jesus, as many claim, and if each age is 2,150 years, then, we'd have a long way to go. Or could it be somewhere in between there? Or could they have the date about, the BCE thing with the date of Jesus? From what I hear, that's not quite correct either. It just chosen arbitrarily later on. Much like the 25th was chosen so that they could cash in on the pagans using that holiday date
Richard,
already. Right?
I feel compelled to join you because I know between you and Graeme and Steve here, if you start talking about the zodiac and all that crap, I might have to get involved.
Sure. Yeah, please.
Because I know Graeme isn't, that's going to fly. But I think I know the gist of what you're saying here, because you're getting into this numerical stuff and all that's these things.
And just a shifting time of more energies and more chaos.
Okay, well, the shift is another issue. We could talk about that because that's just a big old galactic thing, and that's whether you believe in zodiac or not. We are moving into this disk, if you will, this galactic. We're passing through a big energy field that's coming from the center of the galaxy, and that's golden. That's a period that they associate with transition, and that is actually happening for sure. But there's the thing about the zodiac and all this crap that you have to understand in order to understand the real significance of what all that crap is and why they say it has any kind of relationship at all, is that you have to first believe that you chose to come here and you made arrangements prior to come here that would affect every aspect of your life, down to where you would be born, the time you were born, the place you would be born, who you would be born to, who you'd be interacting with during your lifetime, and all this. And the idea is that this is all contracted in advance. And this is where the zodiac comes in, because the zodiac isn't some arbitrary thing that you say, oh, you arbitrarily happen to be born on this date, so this arbitrary star formation happens to have some sort of influence somehow on your life. No, it doesn't work like that. What it actually does is, yes, these star formations do actually have an influence, and you actually chose to be born at that specific time so that you could have those specific influences of giving you whatever it was that you needed in order to fulfill the mission that you chose when you came here at this particular time.
But you were more in sync with the universal consciousness, like when you were first conceived in this form.
When you're in a higher level, okay, again, this is having to do with higher level densities. Like we were talking about subconscious earlier, that's fourth level density. That's the one just above us. But a higher level density above that, which we would consider like a limbo sort of thing, which is basically where if you can, the whole concept of reincarnation, you go into this, this thing where your soul hangs out there, and then you chose to have this life experience on Earth, and it's like a university. It's like, okay, I'm going to go down there and be a human, and at this certain time, and I'm going to influence the other humans, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to gain these experiences, and I'm going to take care of these issues that I need to take care of, and learn to have these experiences that I need to learn in order to fulfill my growth that I need to grow, so that I can move higher up to Creator. Because everybody's trying to move up to the Creator, but they have to do all this crap in order to get there, and part of that is having these human experiences that allow us to basically experience or learn what we need to learn so that we could progress to the next level. And that may take many lifetimes.
I heard you talk about this. I heard you go over this in the show you did about the Loosh, Stephen. These orders of consciousness and dimension.
Well, yeah, you got to. Well, it's not dimension. Dimension's a whole other thing. It's density. People use the word dimension, but it's kind of like, it's not exactly interchangeable, but it's the word that people usually use, because nobody is trained to even be conscious of this whole density thing. There's a reason they don't want anybody knowing about this stuff, because all physics and electromagnetic phenomena and everything in the universe is connected to it. And in order to really understand science and its connection to the universe, you have to be conscious of these things. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Like string theory. String theory doesn't make any sense unless you take into these things into consideration. So and it's like you're a human living on the third density, and yet you think that you can comprehend the functions of God and creation and how things work. It's ridiculous, because there's so many levels of density that each level is like 1,000 times more advanced than the one we're on now, that we can't even begin to comprehend these mysteries. We get just the rudimentary flavor of it. That's it.
Graeme, Stephen, do you have any other question for?
I suppose it would be like an ant that trying to comprehend human society,
or a blind man on feeling an elephant, right? that phenomenon.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I have sensed an acceleration in this density, and the way events are happening. I think maybe because there are more people. There's more people years happening, so history and events seem to be accelerating more and more. I have noticed that seems to be happening, because how long ago was it that, say, Kathy Griffin held up that fake severed head? I mean, it seems like it was a long time ago, but it's not very long at all. Events just... they seem to be taking on a rolling down a hill snowball effect, especially the past 2-3 years. And I don't know if that's just my perception, or if it's something that you all have noticed as well.
How about you, Graeme?
I don't see things like that at all. I think that there are at least 3 levels of there's 3 levels of reality that we don't see. There's entities that our eyes can't see. We only see in a narrow band, and it's quite a narrow band. And we don't see all the colors either. We only see what colors that humans see. There is a whole host of other colors. We only see a narrow band. We only hear in a narrow band as well. We already know that. Our hearing kind of goes maybe about 60% of the way up a dog's does, for instance. So we're only hearing and seeing stuff in bands. So there's a myriad of entities, spirits without bodies, all around us. Some refer to it as a gallery. And some of these are friendly and some are benevolent. Some of them want to influence you, and they're organized. They're not random. They're organized. They've got an agenda.
So, do you think Nikola Tesla was a demon? You think the guy that invented GC power and all that, AC electricity, do you think he was a demon? Do you think demons taught him how to do that?
I think, I'll tell you an interesting story, Steve. The guy who, the inventor who invented the copying machine went to a seance.
Oh, I heard that story.
Yeah, and he went into a trance, and he was doing automatic writing, and he drew this big diagram, and it was a very complex diagram of a copying machine. And
right, I heard that story, but I want to talk about Tesla because this is kind of important because our whole reality is based on Tesla. So that's why I want to establish a couple of key points based on Tesla first. This other bullshit is irrelevant. But
well,
Tesla,
it's not bullshit.
Just, first of all, I want to make sure that you know about Tesla. Okay.
The design.
You know about Tesla. You know who Tesla is, first of all.
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Okay, good. All right. Now, you understand that Tesla believes in God, that he's not an atheist, right?
Well, most of these people believe in God, yeah.
No, they don't. Most of them are atheists. But Tesla, on the other hand, said that there is a creator and there is an intelligent source to everything. It would be foolish to think otherwise. So right away, if you're dealing with an atheist, you have to present Tesla to him because you cannot argue with the smartest man that ever lived. If Tesla said that there's a creator and there's a intelligent source, who could possibly argue with that? So that's the first thing I want to establish is we all agree that there's an intelligent source, and we agree that Tesla acknowledges that, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, now Tesla also did the Philadelphia experiment, right?
Yeah.
And it actually happened. It's not fake. It actually happened, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he made a ship disappear, okay?
Yeah.
And he broke through the space-time continuum, and it popped out in Montauk 1974 and all that bullshit. That all happened, right?
Yes, I think it did.
Okay, right.
Something
all right.
peculiar
Good.
happened.
So there you go. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that you were talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. When you talk about bandwidths and all that, color, the rainbow, it's the electromagnetic spectrum. And as I tell people, the electromagnetic spectrum is like a yardstick that goes infinitely in both directions, into the tiny and into the big. It goes infinitely small and infinitely big. Right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Now, and this is important, we know, because of Tesla, that there is a such thing as scalar energy. He discovered scalar energy. And we know from advanced physics today that scalar energy is of a spectrum that is completely separate from the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? But it runs parallel to the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, simple humans on this level of reality, what I call the third density, we like to think that our electromagnetic spectrum actually controls this other spectrum. Bullshit. It's the other spectrum. It's what controls our spectrum.
Of course, yeah.
All right. The point is that these things that you're talking about, these entities and things like that, it's not wavelengths of a thing. Okay, that's almost. I'm just trying. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to help you understand the physics of what you're talking about here. Okay, because in dimensions, if we're talking about dimensions, then yeah, there could be all kinds of different shit in different dimensions. But this is reality we're talking about, not dimensions. So we know that there is this spectrum that's next to ours and parallel to ours. And we know that if you modify something on this spectrum, that it actually will cause an instantaneous modification on the spectrum that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And this is beyond our comprehension. Okay, most humans can't even comprehend this. I talk about this shit all the time, but I know that nobody can comprehend this. Only most, I've only seen some physicists that can even begin to comprehend this. But the point is, though, is that it's just like you said, we can't see. We're barely just perceiving the level just above us, and there's many, many levels above that. So in other words, if our greatest scientific minds just barely discovered this other spectrum just above ours, we know that spectrum is driving ours, and we know there's a spectrum above it that drives it, and a spectrum above that drives it, and on and on and on and on, all the way up to God. Okay, and that's so. In other words, it's like the levels between. If for us to say, well, I think there's 3 levels between us and God, it's like we're not even worthy to try to even put a number on how many levels there may be between us and God. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, aye. The Bible speaks about 7, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, even then, those guys are trying their best to understand. But yeah, I believe there's like 7, but I think there might be levels in between those that we couldn't even comprehend.
Well, what was the other thing? What was the other thing you were going to say, though, Graeme, earlier?
When I was speaking about the Xerox guy.
You haven't heard that story before, huh? He designs this thing by automatic writing, like some spirit told him what to do, and he designed it and drew a blueprint for the whole thing, some complex. Hey, let me tell you a quick story. This is kind of a fun story, Graeme, is along those lines.
Okay? Wait a minute. You missed out the important part of the story, Stephen. The important part of the story is he was told that he was told by the patents office it was too complicated. It would never work. So he went back a second time into a seance, went under a trance. He did a more simplified version of his copying machine, but the agreement was he was told he would make millions with this patent of his simple copying machine, but he had to use the name of the spirit who gave him the drawing, and the name of the spirit was Xerox.
Huh.
That's a story.
So we need to find out who this Xerox is. Huh.
Xerox is a spirit, an engineering kind of spirit.
Well, the Yoda in the movies was a spirit. Hey, all right, let me just tell you this. This is a crazy story real quick, and then I'll leave you guys alone. There was this guy I knew, and he met this guy in a bar. And the guy he met in the bar said he was a time traveler. Wow. And he told him that he was like this, in the reality that he was from, this different dimension that he was from, that he was like a security guard working on these trains that they used to ship money across the country, because apparently the country was in like disarray and there was lawlessness, and they had a lot of currency and stuff that would be shipped in these armored trains. Anyway, the point is they're always getting attacked, and he was one of these special forces that would defend these trains, and he wore a special kind of armor, and they used special tactics. And he told this guy that about all this armor and the tactics, and this guy happened to work for an armor company, and he told me about it. He was also very heavily involved in UFOs and aliens and all that crazy shit. But the point is that no one has ever used or developed this technique for using armor and high-speed assault. It's a special technique of a high-speed assault utilizing a certain type of armor that basically allows you to become bulletproof and high speed at the same time with no bunker around you at all, and it would allow you to assault anything. Basically. Crazy, huh?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and I went to people that make steel plates, armor plates, and I was going to have them try to create this for me, but for some reason they never did it. But to this day, I have yet to create, and it was really, really simple stuff. You would wear this armor, one on your shin and then one on your forearm, and you would assume this position, and you would be like a bunker. Basically, you put your elbow on your knee. Okay.
Right.
And now you have a bunker. You're behind a bunker. And It's just your elbow and your knee. It's your shin and your forearm that's providing the bunker. And you only have to wear it on one leg and one arm. And you carry this bunker with you anywhere.
Right.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah. It's also quite bizarre, really. Wow.
Yeah, I know. This is one of the reasons why they're afraid of me, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Man-portable bunker. Oh, yeah, and I know a little bit about ballistics, too. So we're talking about, deflecting the bullets, not taking the bullets. Anyway,
mad, yeah.
and that was just a little revelation that supposedly came from a time traveler. And where else would that come from?
Yeah.
It's something that doesn't exist, something that isn't even in the market. No one's seen it. It's never been applied before, or this technique has never been applied before. I could revolutionize combat with this little tidbit right here.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Completely change battlefield. Yeah, I mean, seriously, that's what I like to do, is make all your expensive weapon systems obsolete really cheaply, and I could probably do this really cheaply too.
Yeah.
Hey, you're both Stephen D as well.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Steven Douglas Whitener here.
Okay.
You know,
you only
Stephen,
got 30 minutes. What?
Stephen, I've heard you speak of race-specific weapons before, and I just an aside, I read that there was a strain of mutated pneumonia coming out of China that was supposed to be a hybrid of two deadly antibiotic-resistant strains of pneumonia. And I don't know how two bacterial, maybe it's viral, but I don't know how two bacteria would combine. It must be viral. I hadn't gotten all the details, but it reminded me of what you had said about the Chinese specific bioweapons before.
Well,
now
this is really kind of pertinent right now because of the whole Korea thing, and I was just telling Graeme earlier, because I know nobody's thinking about this at all, but what's going on in Burma right now is totally because of the Chinese, and the Chinese getting ready to build a big highway, railway, pipeline system to the coast from right through Burma, right down the center of Burma. And same thing they're doing in Pakistan with Gwadar. And this is going to completely change the economic, it's going to change the world, because it's going to cut like 30 days off of the transit time for Chinese freight. Imagine what China can do if they cut 30 days off the transit time for their freight.
Yeah.
It's exactly. How much of a threat could they be if suddenly it took a week instead of 45 days or some crap?
The North Korea thing definitely has to do with more than North Korea, and I believe China is.
I think they're trying to provoke China so that they can use the bioweapon and take out China that they've been saving since the Korean War.
Wow.
They've been sitting on a bioweapon capable of wiping out China since the Korean War.
Well, Myanmar, Burma is pretty close to my heart. My father fought there during World War II with Merrill's Marauders, and a few years ago, the Chinese were wiping out as much of the Kachin in northern Burma as they could. That, I think, had more to do with the hydroelectric dam at Mitsoni than with the railway. The railway comes a little farther to the west. But I do believe that the whole thing with North Korea is much deeper than just one crazy guy with a nuke.
I think they're trying to provoke China, indirectly. I mean, because this is the thing. The last time we had issues with China was over Korea too. And, here's another thing you got to remember about North Korea is that it's not like some happy kingdom just trying to defend their borders. No, they want the South. And like the Stalinists they are, they think that their future is going to be based on owning the riches of the South. So yeah, they're not going to be happy until they have taken over both sides of the peninsula, and they have expropriated all of the technical and economic wealth that they can find.
Do you believe that they could have been setting us up for a false flag?
Well, I don't think Korea sets anybody up for anything.
Well, not necessarily. But
all right, let me just say this. This is probably the most important thing I can say right now. I think that the
the world powers right now, New World Order, is so pissed off that this is why we're getting hit by all these hurricanes and what have you, and they've been bumping them up using their harp and what have you. They've been stirring the pot really hardcore, and they're trying to punish us, and they're trying everything they can to destroy us economically and bring us to our knees, like they've been doing for the last 250 years, basically, at least the United States. And this is because of Trump. Obviously, we're not going with the program, and the only thing they can do, they can't do it. I mean, even the false flag in North Carolina is completely fallen apart. Not North Carolina, but Virginia, the Charlottesville thing. I mean, it's like the actual pictures of the so-called victim, alleged victim, are starting to come out, and they don't look anything like the pictures that we've been seeing at the mock funerals and all of this, everything, where, oh, this poor girl, the woman who supposedly was the actual victim doesn't look anything like the girl's face that we've had plugged all over the media.
And it was revealed today that she died of a heart attack.
Yeah, right. And she was a smoker. I mean, so in other words, it's like, yeah, the event could have caused her, it could have happened. But again, the other thing about this now saying it's a heart attack, which is conjecture too, is there's no autopsy. And I'll tell you something. I don't know if you guys have ever seen autopsies. Have you ever seen an autopsy, any of you?
No.
No.
No? Nobody?
No.
All right. I've seen many autopsies, okay? They're all done the same way. All right? And this is one of the things, until you've seen an autopsy, you can't appreciate the real true nature of death, okay? Because that's what happens after you die. In other words,
what the hell were you doing when you were witnessing these, Stephen? I mean, you're not a doctor, so I'm just wondering.
It's law enforcement stuff. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trust him. He's a doctor.
Anyway, the autopsies are really, really gruesome and awful. But the point is everyone gets them. Everyone gets them, and there's lots of pictures. Okay. So where are the pictures? I want to see autopsy pictures. I don't believe anyone died until I've seen autopsy pictures.
I want to know what things the law enforcement were doing with, what, was it corpses or what was this?
No, anytime there's a murder, you get an autopsy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you're Anthony Scalia.
or a suspicious kind of death.
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. Anyway, okay, I've seen let's see, I've seen autopsies on gang members. I saw one on a taxi driver, which was kind of sad because. And then I saw one on a woman.
No, but why were you at these autopsies though, Stephen? I mean, what was your function?
I wasn't. I was just observing. That's all.
Oh, so there are things you still cannot disclose. Is that?
No, it wasn't. It was just it was in the family. Okay, my father-in-law worked for the district attorney's office, and so that's how I got to see stuff like that.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. But I also did, I did detective work too. I did PI work and stuff, but no, I wasn't involved in that.
You stated that the New World Order was really pissed off about Trump, but I'm not so sure that it's Trump per se, but the fact that so many people voted for him and that so many people are waking up to what's going on.
Yeah,
I
well,
think that they're losing their control. They're losing the veil they have over everybody's eyes. There are enough people waking up to that we elected Trump, and that's probably what's got them spooked even more than him, the man, I think.
Yeah, he's just a puppet. We're using him. They don't like us.
Exactly.
We're using him. Yeah, and the other stuff is that certain things are out now that they're losing control over. Like for instance, the whole pedophilia thing and Pedogate and all that. The satanic stuff. I mean, before Hillary Clinton and WikiLeaks and all that, just imagine trying to convince the average person that these guys were a bunch of satanic child molesters. They would have thought you're absolutely crazy. But now it's not so far-fetched. And, it's like the Getty thing is becoming common knowledge. People, it's out there,
Yeah.
That genie is out of the bottle. They can't bring that back. And it's they know it's the end of the road because we're not supposed to know about this stuff. And it's just like in the protocols, like when I read the protocols, they've been preparing us for this for, many generations, many centuries, and they're trying to pull it off right now. And at the same time, they know that at any moment the mob could bring it all down. And the only weapon they have against the mob are the undergrounds. And now we know about the undergrounds. So I think they're a little concerned that, we weren't supposed to know this stuff and it's all going to fall apart. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to bring down. I mean, you talk about all this when you talk about this little surface bullshit like Kim Il-jung or China or whatever, remember, these are all little puppet player bullshit. You always got to focus on the big game, the big puppet master. That's the enemy. All this other shit is just distractions like the hurricanes. Florida's screwed. Unfortunately, there's going to be devastation in Florida, but we can't focus on that because that's what it is. It's taking our energy away from us to fight them. That's like being in a battle. Imagine if you're in a battle, you're on the front line and you got your comrades are dying left and right. If you start freaking out and trying to help them, your battle's over. That's what we're in right now. Right?
Yes, I agree. The way you describe that is all this big surface bullshit that I think the whole history of nations and states has almost been like a matrix that they put over the real war, as Richard Nixon wrote a book about the real war. It's all about revenue extraction from the many into the very few's hands, into this puppet master. And all of the whole history of it has just been like a matrix that's put over the top of it to control to farm the animals. We're the animals they're farming, and the resources is their crop, our energy, our wealth,
concentration of wealth and power. Yes. Would you agree as well, Graeme?
Yes, I can see that.
I've been reading Tragedy and Hope again the past week. I've forgotten what an academic Carol Quigley was, but it outlines a lot of the history of this group and how they played one off against the other and gained more and more control and power. And I do believe you're right. It's coming to a head very quickly. When I mentioned that history is accelerating, it's just coming into a point of inflection or to
I just had an evangelist at my door right now. He wanted to remind me that we have a Heavenly Father or something like this. God, no, actually, he was promoting Mary, which was kind of strange, huh?
Oh wow!
Mary, Heavenly Mother, Virgin Mother. Hey, this is the thing, and ultimately, I think, hopefully you'll appreciate this because I know Graeme does, but we talk about the political and the human stuff and all these things and all that, but ultimately it's a spiritual battle, right? It's Satan's the enemy. Ultimately, Satan's the enemy, and we have to recognize that because we are not here to wrestle against flesh and blood. So that's the main thing. So when you talk about these changes and these movements and people, politically changing and moving, you got to remember, it's going to be a spiritual thing, and right now it's bottom line, it's service to self versus service to others, and we're moving out of the service to self into service to others, and that's really what it is. And all our society that's based on the greed and cash and money and riches and all that, it's going to completely go away. So, and most people, even those people that are wanting to see a better world, they can't understand that concept either. These are still pretty foreign ideas.
I don't see how it can flip that way. I really hope you're right, because it is a spiritual battle. And even if there was no Satan, the people who are in charge believe there is, and they believe that they get their power from him and are serving him. The Satanism and the pedophilia that you mentioned, even if that's just they believe it. So it's definitely something to look at, although I believe you're correct.
Well, I still do find it interesting for us to figure out where we're headed. With these worlds, it turns more and more into like a third world war here as time goes on. I think in the history books they'll say, it was quite a few years of a bunch of different conflicts around the globe, and finally it culminated into a a world war.
But you know what? We're going to rewrite those history books because you got to remember who's been writing all those books, right? Who's been teaching us all this crap all these years?
Well, yeah, often victors who have things to hide. Yeah, certainly.
We get to write our own books.
But no, I mean, the Middle East does seem like, it just is something that keeps persisting. And we hear for so long now, for example, the, Project for the New American Century. I mean, it seems like ultimately, war with Iran supposedly is inevitable, according to the desire of these Western powers. I mean, do you think it's going to have to happen, in our lifetime, Stephen, soon enough?
Oh, the whole Iran thing, I think we can head that off. We can certainly change that. The course that's being supposedly set, the timeline that's being rammed in our heads with revelations and all that is not written in stone. That is what they would like us to think that it is. And when you talk about these American, NGOs and what have you, they are basing everything that they do on this revelations mythology and trying to implement political policy that's going to force revelations to actually happen because that's what they want to see. But that's incredibly misguided. And when you remember that Schofield practically invented all that and shoved it in the Bible so many years ago, and people just assume, it says right here, don't modify the Bible, that nobody modified the Bible. But it was ridiculously modified many, many times. And the most recent one is the Schofield Bible.
That's not right, Steve.
You don't know about the Schofield Bible? You heard about the Schofield Reference Bible?
Yes, I do, but it's a gross oversimplification.
What the Schofield tried to do was show us that we were inextricably connected to Israel, and that somehow they were special and they were chosen and all that. The Bible never said that until Schofield got involved.
Well,
he was a con man.
The King James Bible is a direct copy, a word-for-word translation from a very ancient Bible called the Textus Receptus. And it was not the Bible that the Vatican took. They took the Alexandrian scriptures, and they mucked about with them as well in 325 AD at the Treaty of, what was it
Nicaea.
called?
Council of Nicaea.
Yes. So the Bible they messed with was the Alexandrian scriptures. However, the ancient Textus Receptus was not messed about with. And that was the source Bible for the King James. And it's a very accurate translation. It's not being messed with at all. In fact, it could still be checked. There still exists 5 copies. They've got 5 copies of the ancient Textus Receptus still sealed up. Kept out of daylight and everything.
But Graeme, how, I understand that you've got your King James Bible and all that, but how is that possible that here you go and pull out Genesis last week and you've discovered all this stuff you've never seen?
Genesis like a treasure trove. Well, every time you read it.
Imagine that the same thing applies to all the other chapters, and the worst one is the damn Revelations, and hell, the aliens claim to have been the ones to have written that. I'm just saying, it's like the point is we're talking about interpretations. And and the Schofield Bible, it was like a reference, and it basically said, all it did was say this. Okay, this is how you interpret what this says, and it's that interpretation that allows people to not see stuff that they don't want you to see, and to focus on things that they think you should focus on, which turn out to be irrelevant.
But
they certainly don't focus on Abraham being a pimp and Sarah being a whore. And yet we're supposed to think that the children of Sarah and Abraham are somehow special. What, seriously, who wrote that? Come on, the children of the whore are not the ones that are special. It's the children of the slave of the whore. Those are the special ones, but the Bible kind of somehow got that mixed up. Just like all our histories kind of got everything mixed up. The same one said Hitler was a bad guy. It's all full. Everything. It's all bullshit, man.
the victors write the history. While I still have a chance to ask both you guys this, was it the lamb lies down with the lion or with the wolf?
The lion lies down with the lamb.
Yeah.
The lion, not the wolf.
No, the lion lies down with the lamb.
Yes. That's the way I remember it too. But supposedly it's been changed to the wolf now.
Is it?
That's what I've read and what I've seen, and it's just very strange to me. That is a whole other can of worms, and I just wondered how you guys remembered it.
I'll be right
Steven,
back, guys. I'm going to try to eat something real quick.
Alrighty.
I'm going to mute.
Okay.
That description was simply it was a metaphor about how things will be in the time of the second coming.
Yes.
And in heaven.
But it has been revealed or discovered, or I don't know how to put it, that the verse has been altered, that it was always, that verse always said the lion will lie down with the lamb. But now that if you look in the Bible, it will say the wolf will lie down with the lamb, that the Bible verse itself has been changed. And I didn't believe that, but I looked, and it says wolf now in my Bible. I remember it saying the lion. Look in your Bible. I forget that verse. I can look it up for you. But what does your Bible say, Graeme?
It's a lamb, definitely. I've read it many a time. Yeah, it's definitely the lamb.
Well, yeah,
Lion
it's a lamb. A lamb, yes, but a lion. Is it the lion or the wolf?
The lion.
Okay, that's the way
But
I
listen,
remember it.
Yeah, but listen, it wouldn't make it. It's a metaphor. It wouldn't make any difference if it was a wolf or whether it was a bear.
Well, I agree. I agree. The metaphor would mean the same thing, but the point is that people are making that the actual wording has been altered in our timeline.
That seems to be pretty pointless, doesn't it?
Why? Yeah. Why would they change it? It's. I agree. It does seem to be pointless. But there are a lot of these things that have popped up. That one I remember, and there's another one that I remember that has different now, is from the movie Moonraker. I think it was a James Bond movie, and this character was Jaws, and he had these big silver teeth. And this girl smiled at him, and she had braces, and the fact that she had braces on, there was this moment between them that, we're just alike. But now when you see that movie, the girl doesn't have any braces. And I do remember her having braces. I saw that movie when it was in the theaters. You know, the whole scene doesn't make any sense if the girl doesn't have braces. So these things have been popping up. They call it the Mandela effect. And I just wondered how you remembered that verse. Well, I wanted to ask you that while I had a chance. I remember it being the lion and the lamb as well. Yeah.
Listen, in the original movie, didn't her steel braces attract her to Jaws, and they ended up kissing? No,
I do believe they did kiss, but then afterwards she smiled and she had the braces. I remember the braces, unless
so do I.
Yeah,
so do I. Totally.
Yeah, that was the whole. You know, the scene really doesn't have that. It's kind of nonsensical without her having the braces there. That connection is not the same between them. And I don't know. There are a lot of things that people say have been changed there, and that's very strange. That just, at first I dismissed it, thinking, people just remember things differently. But now I've started to see some things that I definitely remember differently that have been changed, and I can't explain it. It's very bewildering.
It looks like we only have about 5 minutes left. Are there any other things either of you gentlemen wanted to bring up to each other, or to ask, each other's opinion on?
No, not really. Not that I can think on.
Well, Steven, something
Yes.
Something that you could think of to bring up to Graeme here.
Well, I remember he mentioned how American culture was cool in Scotland. I want to tell you that British and music was very cool here when I was growing up. I became a Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin fan at an early age, and I do agree with you that since about the year 2000, music has just turned to nothing. Up until I could recognize what decade music came from pretty much just by hearing it, up until 2000, and everything has just gone to crap. This auto-tune stuff. Culture has just died. Every generation had something that distinguished it from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And now it's just all a mishmash of nothing culture. I agree with you completely with that. I just wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, it's everything though. It's in movies. It's even in porno and stuff. You'll see people say, "Oh, it was just some second-rate Yankee porn." So even the porn industry is taking a hit. And they were famous for their soft porn. Hollywood's famous for soft porn all around the world.
I remember when Linda Lovelace first was a thing.
Oh yeah,
I was just a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that as well, clearly, and the whole story of O and all that stuff.
Yes. I read that book when I was like 12, I think. It was the original 50 Shades of Grey, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's really been a pleasure doing this and talking with you, Graeme. I'll try to catch your show and follow you as well. And thanks for asking me again, Richard. I really appreciate it. I hope I'm able to contribute to the Truth Cat Radio in the near future. And if anybody's out there listening, please send your shekels to Truth Cat Radio. They need the help and provide you this information and entertainment.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so start thinking about those, just those first things Steven was mentioning, like a good headshot photo that we can use for promotion, and start thinking, about a title that you'll have for your show, a theme title. So, maybe I'll give that some thought. And you said probably in about a month.
Yes.
You'd probably be.
Probably early next month. I can have a setup. Expenses have been a little high this past month, but maybe the first of next month I can get it all set up. I won't have to fight the gremlins and borrow laptops to do it.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, fellas. Listen, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to go on mute now and let you.
Okay. Cheers.
All right. Well, yes. And thank you for sticking around as well, Graeme. I think it was a really good, round table sort of conversation. I like those. I think the audience does as well at times. You get a lot of points of view, and there's so many directions that can go in during the show.
Yeah, that's right. It's good. It's interesting because it takes unpredictable twists and turns. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
If you guys want to stick around, it's okay.
Sure. I'll stick around. Graeme. I guess Graeme can hang up if he gets ready to sleep.
I'll just hang about at the bar.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. All right, Steven. We'll both do that. All right, everyone. Well,
you still got a few minutes here. Okay, do a couple more minutes.
All right. Well, yes, you heard what I was mentioning earlier, Steven. How now we're sending another 3,000 troops into Afghanistan. That's just the country we can't get away from, right?
Yes, I'm still on. I heard you say that. I had muted myself, and it's a bad sign. I think that the deep state is really in charge of the administration. That the military's got McMaster there and Mattis, and they're just. I don't think that they're very good.
Hey, let's just throw this out. Remember how I said about that China's building that road to Gwadar, right?
Yes.
It's going to connect to Afghanistan, Tajikistan, all the stands. And right now, all those minerals and all that wealth, there's no way to get it out of the country. Well, guess what? China's going to build a way to get out of the country, and guess who's going to make the money? It's not going to be the United States.
Yeah.
That's why they don't want to go, because they know what's going to happen. As soon as the government, all they got to do is hook up a rail line to that rail line going to the port, and they can ship out all those whatever it is that they want, lithium or whatever. They can make billions and billions of dollars and become wealthy. But no, we want all that money.
Well, why isn't anyone internationally, saying anything about Israel taking the Golan now? Because now that all that oil is under it, they're never going to let it go
this
unless.
Is much bigger than a Golan issue, man.
Here, speaking about Israel,
It's a
they
precedent,
attacked the Syrian army in the news today and killed a Syrian position in Syria and killed 2 Syrian soldiers. Did you hear about that?
Was that the air raid on the supposed chemical weapons factory, Graeme?
I don't know what their excuse was. I just know that it was the Israeli Air Force
Yep.
hit targets in Syria and killed 2 Syrian soldiers. That's all I know.
Well, yeah.
You know they captured Deir Zor, right? Just recently.
Yes.
I mean, the Syrians. It's like there really isn't much left to ISIS right now. Israel is getting concerned, and yeah, they will be turning their attention on the Golan as soon as ISIS is gone, and Russia will certainly be. Russia is there right now, basically telling them not to do anything.
Yeah. There's still a ceasefire in places, or not?
Well, the ceasefire is Russia says nobody does anything or we shoot you down.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't shoot down these Israeli jets.
I know.
Actually,
I think
Israeli jets have been getting shot down, though. The Syrians have been shooting. Yeah, didn't an Israeli jet go down here recently? I think it was confirmed. They're trying to launch standoff weapons. They don't want to get close.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Russians have just delivered a new squadron of AWACS to the theater. So there's going to be an airborne monitoring system that'll be able to pick up anything the second it's launched. So things have changed. Okay, Richard, I know you want to go.
Well, yeah, I guess it's about that time. But yeah, we'll stick around. Yeah, I don't know if whichever of you gentlemen want to stick around as well for Steven's show here. But everyone, thank you. Who's been listening to the end here. Appreciate all the listeners, and thanks again to the people at Wolf Spirit Radio who are listening. Thank you, JP, for the simulcast there. Stick around for the Stephen D. Kelley show just in a few minutes here after we just do a short intermission. And as I said, we have some exciting guests coming up in future weeks. Exciting new hosts starting as well. I know we have Brad as well.
Well,
and
Brad Olson's having to work things out. There was a conflict with he was actually on another network trying to do a simulcast that didn't work out. So we're trying to come up with something that works for him.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have that in the works. And now we have the second Stephen D. On the network here, so we'll be looking forward to what he has to add to the schedule as well. Okay, everyone. Well, stick around for Stephen D. Kelley and his show. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. Until then, transcend the construct. Regards.